This is the Anna Phil Interviews. I'm here in Cannes with Trixie to talk about a subject titled 50% of marriages work. How? Trixie, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Now, you are 94.
Yes.
And you were married for 70 years.
That's right.
Why do you think your marriage lasted so long, Trixie?
I think possibly because it was a different era. We had guidelines, we had rules which had to be obeyed. We came from the same background. I think that's important. The families were very happy, both families were very happy about our union. And we had their support and that of friends as well. I think that's part of it. Also, we had this sort of magnetic attraction for each other, which lasted. It lasted those 70 years.
Do you think it's a case that you worked at it as well?
People say marriage doesn't work. It's not marriage that doesn't work, it's people who don't work at it. And you have to. You have to work at it. You have to talk. You have to talk out your problems. You have to make plans, plenty of plans, from the sort of first plans of where you'll live, what you'll do, how your work plan will go.
So what advice would you give to couples that are entering marriage today or considering marriage today?
Talk about it, but talk and write down certain principles and rules. You have to reach all the salient points together. The budget, where you're going to live. Children. Are you going to plan for children or not? And therefore, what your life will be like after their arrival, how you will cope. You have to talk all those things out, and that's just one of the best places to do it, is in bed.
In bed?
Yes, it's comfortable. You're relaxed. You can talk. You can touch each other, which is very important. We were very touchy-feely. We always had to hold hands together. Walking down the street, in church, going up for communion. All wonderful moments like that. We hated being apart, but that could have been part of the fact that he was in the Navy. And so, of course, we had to spend quite a lot of time apart. We had to learn to be very steadfast.
It's almost like keeping that romantic spark alive in that case.
Absolutely, Anna. That is vital, in my opinion.
What would you say to couples that are having problems and the stresses that they encounter in life as a married couple? What advice would you give to those couples?
That they hold hands and talk about it, that they communicate with each other, that they explain to each other how they feel without the other feeling any animosity at all. This has to happen. And I think it helps if you are physically in touch. This is very important. I think that...
As in touching hands.
That's right. Arm round. Ken always put an arm round my shoulder, and I referred to him as the Rock of Gibraltar, which he was, because we met there, so it was always in our hearts and our imagination. But we talked everything out. We quarrelled, and we quarrelled quite happily. We could bicker with each other, or we could tease each other, because we got to know exactly how far we could go. And if we'd gone too far, we learned to say sorry. One of the most difficult words in the English language.
Is to say sorry.
Yes.
Now, you haven't always lived here in Cannes. I know that you've moved around a lot.
Yes.
And there are couples who consider when they retire, they're going to move to another country.
Yes.
That can be quite challenging in itself. Retirement's challenging and so is the move.
Certainly.
What advice would you give to couples who are considering retirement in a foreign country?
Well, once again, you have to talk it out, and we started a good 15 years before the possible date of retirement. We, because of our lives, my army family, my naval marriage, we'd seen a lot of places and gone to a lot of different countries. But we always knew we wanted to retire to the Mediterranean. And we knew quite early on it would be France, not Spain or Italy, because we already had school French. you have to, the country you choose, you must learn about the laws, you must talk to a solicitor, a lawyer, an international lawyer if possible, and learn about what you'll be subjected to when you're living there. Learn if there is a quota or if you will be welcome there. And then you have to certainly talk out where you would like to be. Do you have friends in that vicinity? Do you have an interest like the church or a club, a society, whatever you're doing? Prepare the way. Learn the language as much as you can.
Do you think that's a big flaw that people do? They just come here and they think that they're taking their home country here.
They're making the biggest mistake of their lives. It's not their own country at all. And the people are different. They're likable, they're lovable. But you have to find out how to deal with them, how to adjust to them, because they're going to have to adjust to you too.
It's the cultural differences
exactly.
as well.
Oh, it is. It is. But it's very enjoyable. You have to prepare, and I think people don't prepare enough. They go possibly to a place where they had happy holidays, and it may turn out to be a very unhappy retirement.
Because it's never the same when you're on holiday.
Never the
through
same.
rose-tinted glasses, isn't it?
Exactly. You're managing a budget in a different currency. You are dealing with a different language, a different sort of moral setup even. You need to know what you're doing completely.
And with all these wedding destinations that couples can choose from today, I mean, you can go anywhere in the world and get married. Would you choose to marry in another country than where you were married?
Looking back.
And why?
Yes.
Why?
Looking back on it, I thought at first it would be the Mediterranean. And then really looking back on it, I think, no, stay in your comfort zone. Stay where your family are in comfort. Because I would think personally that moving around and moving everybody makes everybody a little unsettled. You're not where you're used to being. I would then marry where I was happy at home. My parents were happy at their home. So we went from home to church, as it was in our case, or in other cases, to the registry office. And make your marriage there. The wedding, of course, is the full package, the breakfast, the wedding breakfast, where you've invited to rejoice in your union. And that will always be where you feel most comfortable.
I think that's an interesting point, that about the comfort zone, because it is a celebration and you do want all the people that you love and care for around you, I suppose.
Well, of course you want them to witness to your happiness, to your vows, to your signing of your legal documents. This is very important.
Did you spend a lot of time preparing for your own wedding?
Well, yes, I did. We had our engagement party in 1 month, and the next month his ship went away for 3 months. So, and in those days there were no telephone calls.
Yes.
There was no regular mail. You'd get a bunch, which would give you a tremendous lift. And at the end of it, you get a tremendous drop, because you think, well, what's happened in the meantime? You know, is he still alive? And are we all sort of together in this? So it was difficult to prepare. My mother and I did it just on our own. We booked the hotel locally. My father had been posted to Aldershot, not the most glamorous of places to be married in at all. But
it
that's
doesn't
how it
matter.
happened.
It doesn't matter about the destination, as you said. If you've got those people around you, that's what makes the day.
It's so reassuring to be with all those people who know you, have known you for a long time, and have become familiar with your husband-to-be's family and him as well. So I think that was the best thing, although it was not the Mediterranean or anything glamorous at all. It was a military and naval wedding anyway.
But it was beautiful because of what it represented, obviously.
Yes, I don't think there were more than 50 people present, but it was wonderful.
It's quality, not quantity,
yes,
they say.
Exactly, exactly.
Now
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a question here. Do you recall a special moment from that wedding day that is still very precious to you now?
Yes, I do. I do. We didn't have wedding planners in those days, and something went wrong at the last moment with the wedding cars. The wedding car, which was to take my father and myself to the church, had taken my mother and the little bridesmaids, my cousin, his 2 little nieces, to the church. And the driver must have popped in for a little refreshment somewhere on the way back. And so I was 20 minutes late for my wedding. And it was in the afternoon, and I knew that there was a cut-off point for the vicar. And so I was quite calm until I got to the church. And then I saw everybody looking with a sigh of relief, a collective sigh of relief. And my husband standing up there in full uniform, with his best man in full uniform. And I walked up with my father until I got to that moment where I suddenly realized, this is it. I'm getting married. And
really?
Yes.
It hadn't really dawned you before then.
Well, yes, it had, I thought. But this was a moment that was absolutely amazing. And I started to shake like an aspen leaf. And my father handed my hand over to my fiancé, and I clutched it, and he looked at me, and he put his arm round my waist and held me all the time like that.
How wonderful.
And I calmed down and started to enjoy it all.
I think actually that's a lovely point. You said you enjoyed it.
Oh yes, it was wonderful. So I've always gone back to that moment and thought to myself, why did you have that moment? And I think it was because I was so preoccupied with all the other things that although I knew it was a very solemn thing that I was doing, and my husband had drawn me aside for a few moments 3 days before the wedding and said, now look, if you want to change your mind, you know, this is a very... And I said, you must be joking, the flowers are ordered, and that's how I looked at it. And it was that moment when I got in front of the altar and the vicar and all our friends who were so relieved to see me anyway. Because apparently my aunt had said to my fiancé, she's done a bunk. So there was a bit of consternation. But that's when I knew what I was doing. I was committing myself for life, and it was a wonderful life.
Wonderful. All I can say is I have enjoyed talking to you and listening to you and hearing all your experiences. Trixie, thank you so very, very much for talking to me today.
Anna, thank you for letting me tell you of the wonderful moments of my life.
Thank you.